Now we just got to let it dry out.
Yeah, that would be hard up higher in a ceiling, you said, right?
Yeah, those are 16-foot ceilings with 10. The 10 ceiling is up there, 5/8 drywall and then a half-inch OSB. So to get to it, you have to go through all of that. And there, it was kind of funny. There was three ladies in there getting their hair did, and I had to shut the water off to the whole building. And water's kind of important for a beauty salon. So one of the
Yeah.
gals was at the shampoo station, and they're like, there's no water, huh?" I know. I think they actually went across the street to the beauty salon across the street and washed her hair.
Oh, yeah, because that process has to happen. So,
Hmm.
yeah,
It's a day in the life of me.
you live for it though.
I used to live for it more than I do now,
Okay.
but I turned 43 at the end of September, so I've been doing this a little
Oh,
while. Your adrenals start catching up to you.
that's my excuse, right? Yeah. No, I was listening to something they said about 39 is when you reach peak mental performance and then things start degrading and yeah, I wish I could have heard the whole thing, but I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah,
So, well, Sherry's got our first slide up, and I see people are starting to join us. So,
we're off to a good start.
we are. So, welcome to everybody who is logged in. I was going to try to do a poll today, but it wouldn't work. Imagine that. But my question for the poll was with Nebraska having their first football game next week, next Thursday night, will they win? And if so, how much? So, for those of you who are listening to me, maybe enter your prediction in the chat box and we'll have some good conversation maybe around that as people continue to join us. So, I think the poll was going to be win by more than 10, win but less than 10 points, or are you crazy? They won't win. So feel free to use those as your response as well. Sports topics seem to get a good amount of discussion going.
And I know nothing about it, so I am of no help.
Okay. Well, it's always the great surprise, I think. But my husband is the eternal optimist. They'll have a winning season this year. He knows for sure.
It's so funny. You can definitely feel the vibe when it's good, and you can also feel the vibe when it's bad. Like it's just crazy with throughout the whole
Mhm.
state. You can just feel it. It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, the Huskers are our only professional team. Many states have colleges and professional sports, and we really have nothing. So we kind of live and die by our football team and now the volleyball team at UNL. So, but yeah, so welcome for all of you who are joining. We'll be starting here in a few minutes, but we were just discussing, will the Huskers win their opening game next Thursday night? Um, Feel free to tell us yes or no, and if so, by how much in the chat box. I know there's some predictors out there. I think the most animated conversation we had leading up Amos was, do Skers have a role in Nebraska? So, people who support the Creighton Blue Jays and the Huskers. So that was an interesting conversation that took place one time. Oh, okay. Amos is
I'm I'm gonna
an
manifest
optimist.
it. Yep.
Wonderful.
There you go, everybody.
Yeah, he's thrown down the challenge. Are you on board with Amos and his prediction, or are you going to go and swim upstream a little differently with the Huskers next Thursday night? So nobody wants to share. I'm going to say they'll win, but I don't know that I'll watch it because they make me very nervous if I watch them.
Well, I'm going to manifest and say, I don't care who wins. I don't care. I'm not a Husker. So, but my husband is dragging me to a football watching party. So I'm hoping I have a good time in Napanee. So,
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. They know how to make life interesting and accelerate your heart rate when they play. So, for those of you who are joining, you'll notice in the chat we're talking about will the Huskers win their opening game next Thursday night? And if so, how much? Or are you a Husker naysayer and say, I'm crazy and that they'll lose? So, I'm cool with whatever. So, Christine, thanks. Sharon, she's an optimist. She's saying the Huskers win as well. So, and Sherry doesn't care because she's a Texoma girl. Okay, we'll just give it a couple more minutes so you've got time to put in your predictions or your answer.
I don't even know if I should admit that I don't even know who they're playing.
I'll
Um,
admit it for both of us. I have no clue.
Okay, I have no idea who they're playing.
they're playing Cincinnati at Arrowhead Stadium, and Cincinnati is known for the Kelsey brothers, I believe. If not one, at least one, maybe both, for all I know. So it's a big kickoff, literally and figuratively, for the Huskers. So Dawn, she's just neutral about college. She's a Buffalo Bills fan. So that's okay, Dawn. We'll accept you regardless. So, okay. We'll just give, I see people continuing to join. So um, we'll wait just another minute or two. But
Who's headed off
thanks,
to the
Dawn.
state fair?
Oh, that's right. That starts tomorrow, doesn't it?
Hate to admit I don't know what day, but I know it's this weekend. So
Yeah, I'm thinking tomorrow through Labor Day. So I
yeah.
haven't made a commitment yet to the state fair. We always do the same thing when we go. So I'm like, what's the point? It doesn't change. So,
Excuse
That just means you have to do something different out of your comfort zone you've never done before.
well, that takes me off the, what is it? The fairway, not the fairway, that's golf. The, the, carnival,
The
whatever that
midway.
is.
The midway.
Midway. Yes. Thank you, Paula. Thanks for coming to my rescue here. So yeah, the grandkids don't enjoy it anymore. It's, they're older, and so we don't even do the midway. So, but, well, as people continue to join, I think our speaker has such great information. I want to get us started here right on time. So welcome and thank you. This is the August 2025 HomeNE Learning Network edition. For those of you who are new today, I'm Lori Ferguson. I'm with South Central Economic Development District. We office in Holdridge, Nebraska, and we serve as the lead agent for HomeNE, which is a statewide learning network designed for people from all across Nebraska. What is the purpose of HomeNE? Well, first of all, it's to foster interaction among all of you who participate on a regular basis, as well as those of you who drop by occasionally. We want to engage you and help to skill build all of your abilities and just come together to learn, as well as empower and encourage you. Not every speaker brings information that you can use totally in your own community, but as you listen to our speaker today, I'm sure you're going to find something that, wow, he talked about this. Maybe I can take that back to our community or our housing committee. And what if we did it just this way? So we want to empower as well as encourage you to make housing your own thing in your community. As one of our former speakers has said, and I was reminded of this week, the cavalry isn't coming to save us. And so HomeNE provides that setting where you can come and learn with one another to make housing a reality in your community. So thanks for being here today. Amos Anson is our speaker, and I'm going to have him introduce himself here in just a little bit. But before we move on to Amos, I just want to know, we want to be very engaging. what interests you about today's topic? Um, Enter that answer in the chat box, as well as once you saw Amos's presentation and the topic title, what do you hope to know more about at the end of his webinar event here? So enter those comments in the chat box, if you will. Amos is an engaging speaker. He will be watching the chat box as well as Sherry and myself. And so he hopes to take your questions and answer them throughout his presentation today. So let's, can I say, light up the chat box on his behalf. So Amos, you are our guest speaker today, and I'm so glad to have you with us. We crossed paths a few years ago, and then we reconnected recently at a ribbon cutting event. So we've all been keeping kind of an eye on what Amos has been doing over time. And when I reached out to say, would you be a speaker, he willingly agreed on the spot. So thank you, Amos. And I have to admit, as I mentioned earlier to you, I was really rooting for this topic title. And so I'm glad that you are presenting today on nail guns and notions. I think that's fascinating. So thank you for saying yes. And would you take just a few minutes before you begin and introduce us to you, as well as maybe give us a little bit of information about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Amos Anson. I'm a real estate developer in Grand Island, and like I was saying before the chat, I turned 43 this year. Everyone's always wondering, and nobody has the gumption to ask. So, I am 43. So, no, I'm pretty. I see there are a few familiar faces in here, so that's kind of fun. Um, I'm super laid back. I probably would freak all of you out if you knew that I prepared for exactly 0 minutes, except putting my slides together before this. So I always just talk and I tell my story. Um, and I do want to encourage people to interrupt me. I was telling the ladies, I try to watch the chat, but then I get distracted like a cat or a squirrel. But please ask questions and interrupt me, because all I'm doing or all I'm going to do is ramble and tell my story. So, yeah, that's kind
We're
of my
looking
quick and
forward
dirty.
to it. Yeah, we're looking forward to it, Amos. So go ahead and give us the signal to begin with your slides, and we'll get started.
Yep, so I'll start with my story and then we'll get into the slides. I realized I think we have like 98 slides or something, so there's a whole bunch after I got putting all my projects together. So we'll see if I get through them all. We should, but so I graduated high school in 2001. I went to SCC Milford, and I have an Associates of Applied Science in Building Construction. I just recently got my master's degree in screwing shit up. So that's how I've learned a whole bunch of stuff. I've learned it the hard way. I didn't learn any business stuff. I learned how to swing a hammer. Everything else I figured out the School of Hard Knocks. Um, so I graduated in three, and then started doing some little repair jobs. And then one day I walked up to a realtor and real estate developer, Jim Reed, and I said, "Hey, Jim, I want to build a house." And he said, "Okay, here's $140,000. Here's a floor plan, and here's a lot. Go build it." I was like, "Whoa." So that's the this not the start of my journey, but that's one of the first lessons I learned. Just ask. If you don't ask, the answer is always no, right? If I wouldn't have walked up to Jim, I was a really shy young young person, and I always tell the story of my mom would send me to the grocery store to Skagway when it was still around to get groceries, and I hated it. I wouldn't even talk to the cashier. I just was so scared of talking to people. And then here I am, talking to, I've spoken in front of really large groups. So if you don't ask, the answer is always no. You put yourself out there and do something different. That's why I was prodding you, Lori. Do something different. Get out of your comfort zone. If nothing ever changes, nothing ever changes. And I'm just going to say a bunch of cliche stuff throughout this whole thing, but it's cliche for a reason because a lot of times it's real. Um, so that got me started on my construction journey. built a few houses, and then around 6 or 7, I I learned a really expensive lesson right out of the gate. Fun fact, it takes in a couple who's buying a house, it takes one signature for them to buy it. It takes both of them to sell it. Well, I had some people buy one of my spec homes before it was completed, uh, upgraded everything, cherry cabinets. The carpet was, the padding was way more expensive than the carpet. This huge deck. Great, cool, let's do this. Went to close, it got delayed. And then sure enough, they couldn't come up with the money, and I got stuck with a $30,000 bill when I was in my early 20s, because I only had the husband sign. So that was a really tough lesson. But then I kept building, you persevere. I did get out of all the specs that I had before the '08 crash. I was very fortunate. Um, I was 24 or 23, and I was responsible for 4 mortgages at one point. That was, looking back, that should have been really scary. But I've always kind of jumped out and built the parachute as I was falling. So did that for several years, built a number of spec homes. I kept Jim kept financing me for a while, and then I was able to stand on my own. It's not easy to break into real estate. This is a big boy game. It's big dollars. So then I got this harebrained idea one time. I was driving downtown for some reason, and I saw a building for sale. It's where the chocolate bar is right now in Grand Island. And I also did custom home theaters and electronics and whole house audio and automation and all that. And I was like, hey, I could put my little showroom in here. So I bought it for 30 grand, 30,000 bucks back in the day. And then my wife had this brilliant idea that she wanted to open a place and call it the chocolate bar. So we went through the pro forma process. We applied for SBA loan. We ended up getting it, but we had to, it started out as chocolates. And you know what? Here's my rambling. I forgot to mention the hats that I wear. So I wear a builder hat. I wear a real estate development hat. I wear an entrepreneur hat. Me and my wife, we started and ran the chocolate bar. Well, she did, and I helped her. And then I'm part owner of Prairie Pride Brewing Company. I wear a philanthropic hat. I think at one point I was on like 6 different boards all at the same time, which was too much. I've been the president of organizations. And then I also have um, the hat of low income housing. I was a volunteer construction manager for Habitat for Humanity for 17 or 18 years. Alyssa's in here. She'll probably end up correcting me. Um, but so I have that not-for-profit lens. I drew 2 of the floor plans, and one for Habitat International. The plans I drew won best of affordability in the entire nation 2 years in a row. So I have that nonprofit affordable. Ooh, that's a fun word. Affordable housing um, lens as well. And then I have the downtown building renovation lens, and that's mostly what I'm talking about right now. I'm currently on the Railside board, so if I mention downtown and Railside, I might be viewing it from Railside's point of view and not just my own. So back to the story. So we applied with a business plan for an SBA loan, and I used to say, and so the bank, I had 50 grand to put down, and the bank's like, go ahead and get started. We'll just, well, you're going through the SBA process, no big deal. You've been approved. Now we'll just go through the whole thing. Well, it takes a little bit of time, and by time we went to finally finalize everything, I used to tell people it was the worst day of my life, but it wasn't. It sure felt like it in the time and felt like it for a long time. The bank said, we're not going to do that loan. And I already had it built out. I had the subs had all roughed in. I had sheetrock hung. I was ready to mud it. I owed people money because I was promised that go ahead and do it. Um, well, they ended up not following through. I ended up having to get a loan from a friend to cover my subs, and then a year later we finally opened, and that was quite the journey running a restaurant. You learn a lot about coffee. I can make a mean latte. I can decorate a cake. I can I can run the back end of weddings, all kinds of stuff. So I got a lot of experience doing some of that. Well, um, that isn't really a passion of mine. One of the doctors from Family Eye Care, used to come in all the time, and they said, "Hey, I love what you did with the space here in at the chocolate bar. Where we bought a building in St. Paul. Will you come renovate it for us?" And so I did. I designed it, and that's funny because I forgot to put those pictures in here. Um, so I guess I have control of this now. I'm gonna try to start this. See, I told you I couldn't do two things. There we go. So that's the chocolate bar when we bought it. So this is where the fun part of my story starts with the historic renovations. And so I learned a lot from this one. No, this is the Tattered Book. That was my first project downtown. I got approached by a guy I went to school with. He said, "Hey, I bought this building downtown. I want to put some apartments in it. And this is what it looked like." And like I said earlier, I just jump out of the airplane and build my parachute as I'm falling. He's like, "Can you do that?" I'm like, "Heck yeah, we can." I had no idea what I was doing, but I sure jumped in and learned a whole lot. So I designed the apartments, and they're huge. Like one of them's 2,800 square feet. That's stupid. That's like way too big for a downtown apartment. So I learned a lot of lessons on that one. We did get him a facade grant. Oh yeah, I made those transition. So that's what it looked like with the panels off. And they had cut through all kinds of headers. And this is one of the areas I'm not a historic preservationist, but I do like to pay homage to the past. So if you put these windows back in where they originally were, here is a window, 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 they cut through all the load-bearing headers. So there are some people like, put the original windows back in. I'm like, no, that's not going to work. Like, do you have any idea how expensive that would be to put those original windows back in? So you got to find a balance. Pay homage to the past while sticking with, making it look good. So we did what we could. This is thin brick, and I think it looks really good. We ended up, I got the gentleman a facade grant. So even though it's not original, it pays homage to the past. We matched the style. So that's one of the other things that I'll be talking about is some of the subsidies. That's a bad word to me. Part of me, my other part of me sees their purpose. But we got a facade grant for that, and he ended up um, being pretty successful with it. I ended up buying that building back from him a few years later. Um, so this was one of the bedrooms when we walked in. I like to show before and afters. That's how I set this whole thing up. This is actually pretty good before. And then this is that same room after. That bedroom is 18 by 20 feet, which is way too big. Um, but yeah, you can see where the windows were and the headers and everything. So um, that was the start of my downtown journey. Look out, I mean, that thing's just massive. Um, so this is picking my story back up. This is what the chocolate bar you can um, oh, that's funny. So we stenciled that on there. We had a projector and we shined it on there and painted it on by hand. Coming 2010 to downtown, we ended up having to paint over that, and because it was like an entire year that we missed our deadline. But this is what it looked like before. Um, shouldn't have made that transition. Okay, so this was the inside. This is, before we had really good cameras on our phones. It just, the lights hang in. It was in good shape on the main floor, bones wise. Um, and then that's kind of one of the in process pictures. We got a facade grant for that building as well. I didn't get TIF. I didn't learn about TIF until a few years down the road, but we did do the facade grant. And so that's what it looked like after we did that. So one of the unique things we did, I think we were one of the first ones. This is in the public right away so for those city people or whoever, we had to get a license agreement. So this is on city property. So if the city ever wants to, they can just come in and tear it out if they wanted to. But that is one of the nuances of doing some of this stuff. So again, the inside. Oh, and blasphemy, travesty. We painted the white brick. We painted the brick white. That's one of the most controversial things you'll ever do is paint brick, man. Opinions I mean, people have opinions. We'll say that. Um, so this is what it turned out, and I had to put a fire rated drop ceiling in here, so we weren't able to save the 10 or put it back at that point. Um, but one of the things I really like, and people would tell us all the time, when you're in there, you don't feel like you're in Grand Island. Not that there's anything wrong with Grand Island, but you feel just elevated. You're just that step up. So you feel like you're in Chicago or New York or, whatever. You don't feel like you're in Grand Island. And that's what we love to do. By we, I mean me and my wife. She's the interior designer and I just make her vision happen. So I love hearing that from people. It's just a beautiful spot. I do like to put glass all the way back up. That chandelier, this is another one of my, oh, this is the other side. This is the addition we did. We did get a CDBG grant to finish the other side of the building and turn it into a banquet hall. So without that, we would have closed the doors because as an entrepreneur, making money is hard. They say that the two worst things to like careers or trades to do is open a restaurant and own a construction company. And sure as shit, that's what we did. So without this banquet hall, we would have we never would have make it. Never would have made it. So that CDBG grant. Um, the facade grant came from our local CRA. I will give a huge shout out to Chad Nabity here in Grand Island. He supports the downtown and the revitalization. So the facade grant came through the CRA. And what he did, I've applied for anything and everything under the sun. I even started historic tax credits. That thing's difficult. The CDBG grant process was the second most difficult, but kudos to the city and for any city officials or any people that have the ear of them. The simpler you can make the application, the better. You still have to vet people. You have to not just hand money to them. You got to make sure you're doing a wise investment with public funds. So, really simple process. They match up to 30% of the facade of the entire build out. So if you spent $1 million buying the building and renovating it, including the facade, they'll match 30% of that. They have since capped it. I got the biggest one for one of these other projects down the road. I got 300,000 on that one, but they generally cap it. But one of the design things that we like to do, like we these shades, they make a really neat impact. They look beautiful. Um, but we didn't spend a ton of money. You spend money where it matters. And one of the areas that we've decided that one of the few areas we spend money on is the light fixtures. So they make such an impact. You'll see as we go along. The chandelier on the other side was like $7,000, something like that. And that's a lot of money to spend on one fixture, but at night, it just makes such an impact. So, um, the next project we worked on was the former Masonic temple we named it Tower 217. This one my family owned. Oh, I should back up just a second too. We do consulting for people. So if somebody's looking to buy a building, we'll come in and we'll help them with the pro forma. We'll help them, money in, money out. Does this make sense? How much can I spend on the building? How much is it going to cost? How much can I get in rent? And, doing this as long as I have all that historic knowledge. So I did that on behalf of my family, and then I also designed the commercial projects on the main floor, and I built them out. And then also I do help people lease up stuff as well. So we can do all of it or none of it. And this one I did for my family. This is this is the sixth and seventh floor. It's just kind of a neat picture, but this was back when you can see how grainy it is. I wasn't taking pictures back then, and I'm so bad at it even to this day. But that's what it looked like when we gutted it. This is the second floor, and we did the second and third floor um, in one shot. And I'll talk about a little bit. This was a really, really, really challenging building, but they ended up looking pretty cool. One of my things we like to do is get taller cabinets and the exposed spiral ductwork. You can see the exposed pan joists in the ceiling. A lot of people will ask, "Oh, when are you going to finish the ceiling? When are you going to put up the ceiling?" No, this is it. And you can't fake it. So like these columns, you can't fake the old columns. They were formed by hand. There's like two by or 1 by 12s and 1 by 8. So you see the wood grain in them, and then you just see all the imperfections, and that's something you can't fake. And that's one thing I love about downtown is you have so much character that you can't build. You can't do it in other places. And so I just love that. And before I go to the McKinney's, so back to the tower, that was my first really, really challenging project. So as I go along, the stories will get fewer and fewer because I learned so many lessons as I went. So that building, it's 7 stories according to the fire department, but it's 6 with the mezzanine. So it's depending on who you're talking to. For the fire department, it was a high rise. Well, you have the International Building Code and all the electric and plumbing codes, and then the IBC, International Building Code. When it becomes a skyscraper, a high rise, it triggers all kinds of other codes. And so with that mezzanine level, it was a high rise. And the numbers don't really work to do a project that scale all at once if you're bootstrapping it. I think somebody, yeah, was saying interested in small development approaches and creative ops in general. Let me tell you, we got creative, and I will say again, kudos to Chad Nabity, but the city of Grand Island as a whole, the building department and fire department, I'm giving them kudos. They usually get get hated on. That's not the right word, is it? I don't know. Sure, they get hated on. Um, and so what I did, just like Jim Reed, in the beginning of the story, I walked up to them. So what I found when you talk to a building official, if you ask them, "Can I do this?" They'll be like, "No, you can't," because they look at it through the lens. Does the code say, can I do it? No. So what you do is you ask them, "If I did this, could we view it this way?" And so what I did with that building, I said, "Hey, this thing doesn't cash flow." So in a building like that, it had to have 2 exits that only had one, and it's landlocked. So there's buildings on each side of it, and then there's an alley on the other side. So you couldn't put very easily. There's always ways to use some things, but you couldn't put a second exit in on the outside of the building. And so, and it needed all new windows. And then when it turns into a 4-story building, then you needed proper elevator. So all of those things right out of the gate made it like there's no way this is going to cash flow. You'd have to put it all in all at once. And so I approached them. I'm like, "Hey, can we just treat this for this first phase as a 1-story building with unfinished attic space up above?" They thought about it, and by they I mean the building department, fire department, and they're like, "You know what? We can do that because it's up to the jurisdiction in charge." And so they have the flexibility to interpret the code. Like, what is an unfinished attic space? Just because it has stairs doesn't mean that it can't be an attic. You can have stairs to your attic and it's unfinished and unoccupied. So we were able to do the first floor and start getting cash flow. Um, Man, I was doing 2 projects at once. My next slides are the ones I want to show you. But anyway, so we did the main floor. I'll get to those after this McKinney's one. And then we started bringing in money. Then we did the second and third floor. So it was only a 3-story building and we still didn't have to meet ADA. So we didn't have to put in the elevator when it's only a 3-story building and under a certain cost and size. So, we asked them if we could do that. So then we put in the stairway up to the second and third. And then we had to sprinkle it because when it's mixed, when it's commercial and residential, that triggers sprinklers. And so, but we had enough cash flow from the main floor and then from the apartments that we could fit it in the pro forma. So we did that, and then we just continued as we went. So when they did the fourth and fifth floor, then we had to have the elevator. But by that time, it was working, and we kind of bootstrapped it. We never did do the sixth and seventh floor because we didn't want to deal with the fire pump. Like a fire pump's at least like 60 grand just for the pump itself, and um, but we made provisions the whole way up to have the construction method be right. One of the other neat things that we did. It There's no room for outdoor air conditioner units, so I sat there and thought, I wonder if we could do geothermal. And this is one of the other things that if you ask the city, can you drill a well downtown? They'll say no, because their assumption is it's going to be potable, drinkable, if you will. And I was like, well, what if it's just for a pump and dump system? So they thought about it and they're like, yeah. So we got a license agreement. We drilled a well downtown in the front sidewalk. We had to get a bunch of variances from the NDEQ to be a certain distance from a building and a certain distance from the sewer main and the water main, but since it was just geothermal and a pump and dump, we were able to do that. So we used water to heat and cool that building, and it's super efficient. So um, I'll get to your question, Christina, later. Don't let me forget, okay? Um, so that's some of the lessons that we learned. I'm sure I'll remember some more as I go here. But one of the other things that I like to do is take advantage of the square feet that is available to people. So, oh shoot, I didn't include it. At the chocolate bar, one of the things we did, the basement was like 6 feet tall. It was a dirt floor, and it was really interesting because it was the Livingston Sonderman mortuary. We have a picture of the Undertaker standing outside. So it was literally like a mortuary. And we started, I was like, man, there's a lot of square foot here, but I can't waste this basement. And so we ended up digging 2.5 feet of dirt out of the basement of the chocolate bar and pouring concrete floor and everything down there. And that's where the kitchen, the prep was, the office, all that square foot that you don't need to be beautiful. You don't need sunlight, and it can be cheap square foot. I don't really like that word, but it can be the more cost-effective square footage. So when you're renting to somebody, like McKinney's, for example, that's a pretty small building. It's the old Ben's Rexall. They only had so much room on the main floor, so we put their small kitchen in the back, but then their beer cooler, it's actually ended up being back here, and their prep kitchen and everything was downstairs. So they burned up square footage in the basement. But again, it wasn't usable. So we dug 2 feet of dirt out of there, and we poured this ledge and poured all this concrete. And there's this opening here with a little hatch in the sidewalk. And we ended up taking all this sand and bringing it over here and using a mini X and like reaching in and just pulling it out one little tiny bucket at a time. And we were able to use the basement. And so, if as the landlord, I've since sold that building, you charge 15 bucks a square foot for the main floor and only like $4 or $5 a square foot for the basement. Works for me because I don't have to spend a ton, and it worked for the business. So that's one of the other things I like to do is get creative with the basements. And so we also, one of the challenges, that's a Masonic temple right there in the background. One of the things that Nathan wanted, we cut this opening in the wall, so that was fun, trying to cutting a hole in a big building. Um, this is in the public right of way again. We had to have the license agreement, but it couldn't be combustible. I wanted to build it out of like wood with rough sawn timbers and stuff. But the building department said no, it can't be flammable. So we ended up building this whole thing out of steel. But there's just something about being outside on a patio that is it's special and it's different. Um, and the previous people had got a facade grant, so we didn't have to do anything there. Um, and this is what it looked like when I bought it, so I didn't actually have to gut this one, except cut the door in and stuff. So it's just kind of normal. No, apparently I didn't get a picture of it finalized. So that one was a pretty simple one. I ended up finishing the second floor and putting offices up there, individual offices that people can rent. So this is the Railside Plaza. This is one of my projects that I built. I didn't design it at all. Um, And so this is the old US Bank. So Amir Equipment Finance is here now. Big Red Treats is over here. Um, this one isn't terribly exciting. I didn't learn a whole lot except people are dumb and they walk through your job site no matter what. It doesn't matter if there's open holes. It doesn't matter if you have fence. People are dumb and it's silly. But one of the challenges on this one was the radius. So when you make a circle an arch, usually you find the center point and then you can just like make an arch. Well, the center point, because the designer decided to do it this way, the center point was in this building. So um, we couldn't find it and there was nothing designed to help us figure it out. So we ended up having to shoot it in, but it's also a really flat site. So I ended up hiring um, the engineers, the civil engineers to put rebar in every like 10 feet. And we were able to set elevation off of that. So everything flows properly and we got that radius. So that was a unique part of that project. Um, they made us pour it to some stupid spec, some like NDOT spec. So we couldn't add water and you had to pour it a certain slump. So that's another thing that can slow down some of this stuff is regulation, like unnecessary regulation. This is a plaza. We're not driving a semi truck on here. Why do we need to spec it to NDOT specs? It's just stuff like that. Um, so it ended up looking pretty cool. And then that's the Here GI. Me and my wife and Brent Lindner, he owns Wave and what was Sin City. They started Here GI. So I got to figure that stuff out too. But okay, so this is back to the tower. This is where Kindred was. Again, I didn't take very many pictures and this one's terrible, but you can see those pan joists in there and it's a unique space. One unique thing about the tower and also the Hetty building is um, the height of the ceiling. So I think these were 16 and a half, 17-foot ceilings in there. So this is what it looked like when we tore the front out and you can see our unique colors. You can see the mezzanine in here that we built. We were able to add square footage. So it was a pretty small space, but we also used the basement and the mezzanine. So we created a lot more room for her and it ended up being beautiful. Um, and then this is kind of a Deering picture um, for Helium Salon. They've since moved and bought their own building, but it was kind of fun. Me and my brother were in here one day and we were just like cleaning glue off the floor. I think it was a Sunday, and these two gals walked by as a young lady and her mom, and she's like, "Hey, I'm moving back from Omaha and I want to open my own salon." Um, and I was like, okay, cool. So this is another thing that kind of we do uniquely from some of the other developers. Um, man, when you're an entrepreneur, this stuff's not easy and it's not cheap. So typically what a developer does is, okay, here's your spot. It's a white box. You go ahead and pay for the build out. Well, if you're a 23-year-old um, chick coming back from Omaha who just went to beautician school and you go to the bank and ask them for a loan to build out somebody else's space, here, hey, loan me $300,000 so I can spend it on somebody else's building. I promise I'm going to do good. I promise. Like, so what we have done historically is we pay for the build outs for people and we include it in their rent. So we take that liability. Um, if nobody ever takes a chance, if nobody ever takes the liability, and don't get me wrong, sometimes stuff doesn't work. Like sometimes an entrepreneur doesn't make it, but sometimes they do. And you know what? That girl, her name is Sierra Aarons, she wouldn't mind me sharing. She came back to her hometown. She opened a business because we took a risk on her. I did require her to get me a pro forma and show a letter from the bank saying that she could get a loan to buy her chairs and stuff and all the stuff that you see in there. And she did all of it. I said, make sure you have like, show me you can get insurance, show me your pro forma. I want to see money in, money out. Where are you going to spend it? And she did all that, and we took the risk on her. And if nobody ever takes the risk on these entrepreneurs, guess what? You're not going to get them. They're not only, yeah, you can tell I'm a little bit passionate about that part. But anyway, back to the build out. So we made this neat mezzanine in here, and I learned to weld on this one. I never knew how to weld, so I decided to start my welding career building a stairway, which is not the easiest thing to do. But yeah, we used the cable handrails and made this all from scratch. We ended up making these beauty stations for her. Um, we we just refinished the original floor, epoxied it. This is tile we put up here. And it's kind of fun in commercial spaces. You can get way more creative. Like you could put this orange. You could never build a spec home and paint one of the walls orange and put all this glass and stuff. Um, so that's, we built this for her. That was fun trying to figure out the angles of that OSB and everything. But it ended up being a beautiful space. And that's another thing that's really important as a small business and an entrepreneur. Your customers, you could have the best hair cutting stuff in the world. You could have the best chocolate and food, but if your customers don't feel like good in your space, then that's half of it, if not all of it. I mean, you can have a mediocre product, but if it's in a beautiful space with a good vibe, we put speakers throughout, and it just created that atmosphere. And that's what, is really important in some of these build outs, is creating a beautiful space. So this is GIX Logistics. I don't have a exterior shot. Again, it's those pan joists, and this one was designed by an architect. And by the way, architects aren't perfect, just for the record. This building ended up, so how do you know where to put this wall, right? Do you just measure off of this wall? Do you measure off of this wall? Well, what we found out, especially off of this one, is you have to find a spot. You have to find zero. And so we snapped a line from the front to the back, right in the center, and then side to side, we did the Pythagorean theorem. You can actually see the red chalk line. That's funny. I never noticed that. But that's our square. And so you build everything off of square, because this building, including this giant skylight, it was 14, it was 14 inches racked and 6 inches out as a parallelogram. So nothing in it was completely crooked and out of square. So we had to, we found out the fun way, because we thought the architect had caught it. The stairway we cut in here ended up being 8 inches away from where it was supposed to be. And so we we ended up chipping the plaster off of these walls, and I don't know if the picture will show up later or not, but it was just kind of fun. So we had to put an elevator in this one, and they wanted to take advantage of the roof. So we actually had to cut the stairway through this. This is like 20 feet off of the floor. So we had to find a creative way to get those cut. And we ended up rigging up something that I won't even mention what it was, because it never would have passed OSHA. But we ended up like hand building everything out of steel, because to get like a stairway dropped in, to get it pre-manufactured and dropped in through the roof would have taken like this giant crane, and then getting it dropped in. So I don't know, like it was crazy. We put an elevator shaft through, and we had to cut through the floor and cut through the roof, and it was giving me PTSD just talking about it. But yeah, here's that elevator shaft and the stairs. So we ended up bringing it all in by hand, and just like using chain hoists and winching it up, but ended up exposing the columns and leaving the pan joists exposed and sealing the floor. I should have taken more pictures, but I didn't. But there's the front. Okay, so behind the plaster, this says Grand Island Candy Kitchen, which was like right across the street. So we uncovered that advertisement, because the building that was here before this one got built was one story, and so they had it up on the wall. So it's just that fun stuff that you run into. Um, and GIX Logistics, they could have picked anywhere to do this. And this is another thing I kind of tout, like because they saw what we were doing downtown, they're like, hey, that's awesome. I'm going to buy this building and put millions of dollars into it. And then on top of it, they had their shipping brokerage, and they had all these people working downtown and going to the restaurants and living downtown. So it's this synergy, all because a few projects happened. These people saw it, boom, boom, boom. And now also we have Amir Equipment Finance. They're owned by a company out of New York, and they bought one of the companies here. They could have went anywhere in the entire nation, literally, and they chose to stay in Grand Island because they loved the feel of it. And I am gonna start going through these faster. Prairie Pride Brewing Company. I don't have great pictures, but again, you can see we just kind of left stuff exposed. We had different areas, um, sealed the floor. I didn't have a lot of good pictures for that. Um, but we did get creative. There ended up being a ramp over here to get up to it because it's like a split level. See here, this is one of the areas we had to get creative. Again, license agreement on the front, handicap ADA accessibility. We built those handrails. This is one of them we painted. It just worked worked that way. We had to cut a hole in the floor, all the exposed stuff again. This is one of my proudest things that we ever built, is this stairway. We cut every single piece of steel and drilled every single hole. These are the floor joists and the studs from some of the other buildings. These are the floor joists. And this was, yeah, one of my favorite things that we built. And again, just sealed the floor. You can tell I was proud of this one. But yeah, all of these different angles. And that's funny. Jeremy, he approached me. He's like, "Hey, I like this stairway." He took it in like Macy's or something in Chicago. I'm like, "Yeah, we could build that." We built it, but just kind of fun. This is one I did for a client, and pretty much all of these, except GIX Logistics, we designed and built. Um, we um, we didn't design the layout of this one, but this is after they got their facade. This is granite, black granite. Found that works really well outside. It holds up really well. Oh, fun fact. This could save somebody. This might be worth everything to somebody. So we put new windows in, and then the water, when it would rain, the water would get in. So we ended up, all that wood, we ended up tearing it off because we thought it was leaking through the wood. Long story short, the water was hitting the face of the building, going through the mortar and going inside that first row of brick, getting inside. They had Thrasher come, and Thrasher's like, "Oh yeah, there's groundwater." I'm like, "No, there's no way groundwater is here. It's like 20 feet below where we're at." The water was going all the way down through the brick and into the basement. So it was through the brick where that water was coming into the basement. It was the most bizarre thing. But these turned out really sharp. We weren't able to reuse the floors. We ended up using ash. Um, Here's the big heady building. This is one of them me and Tom Perney own. Been working on it. I'm not even going to tell you the amount of years we've been working on it. It's 9. I bought it 9 years ago. Been working on it for 5 years. So we were going to get historic tax credits originally, and then when Trump came in that first term, he messed with how the historic tax credits would work, and then it just caused a big delay and blah blah blah. But that's what it looks like literally today. I went and took it this morning. Again, another one that we had to paint. I've got the Visitors Bureau, bridal collection, and then there's a sandwich shop going in here. Surprise. And then down here is that Kalon right there. That's the salon I was working in earlier, Lori. So this is an entrepreneurship center. So we got her as an entrepreneur from as a result of the COVIDs, and she came down and started her own company, and she's been successful, really successful ever since. Um, this one had all kinds of um, challenges to it with the ADA. ADA is one of the big challenges. So this is the before of one of the co-working spaces. This is the after. It's literally the same building, same original floor, 10 ceiling. We ended up having to take all the 10 ceiling down, putting up um, OSB, then drywall, and then putting the 10 back up. But to get light all the way to the back, we put these windows up high so you can still get light all the way back. This is another mezzanine level we did. I don't have time for everything. Um, this is the basement. Here we go again, using the basement. That's what it looked like before. And this is the boardroom that everyone in the building gets to use. So it's a shared boardroom. So the Visitors Bureau, bridal collection, everyone in the whole building gets to use this. So not everybody's building out their own individual space. But we used the original limestone foundation, exposed it. Um, this is one of the apartments. This is 308, so you can see the view of Grand Island here. Um, we had to replace the floor in here because we couldn't save the original. Another beautiful kitchen. Another beautiful kitchen. And then Job Excite there above the chocolate bar. So this is a second story one. She came to me and she's like, hey, I need like 1,200 square feet to put my office. I'm like, I don't think you need that much. And so she ended up, we designed it and she ended up with 800 square feet before, after. We left the plaster on this wall and just kind of sealed it, but chipped the plaster off over here. Left a skylight. Um, Christina. So the facade grant has been very helpful. On the Hetty building, we got a $300,000 facade grant. And this is why I like when people ask questions because it reminds me that I forgot something. The city of Grand Island also created an upper level life safety grant where you can apply for $15,000 if you create an upper story living for a 1 bedroom and 20,000 for a 2 bedroom. And that has been extremely helpful as well. And then TIF, has absolutely been helpful as well. But the facade and the life safety are the most helpful. For your pro forma and for the banks, they really like the TIF. Um, I wish the historic tax credits were easier, but my God, those are ridiculously hard to use. There's a lot of money. Quick story on that. So the Hetty building, um, if we applied or we were in the process of it, we would have had to pay our architect like 200 grand just to draw it and then build it. And then you're hoping um, that when the state walks through, the SHPO Historic Preservation Office walks through, that it is original enough for them. So like there's so many triggers that make the historic tax credits not usable that it just doesn't work. I know the state has the the housing funds. I think you guys used it for that Wood River one, right? Yeah. So that's been very helpful if used properly, like you guys are doing. Um, so yeah. This is the Trampy building. This is before. It's this one right here. Brandon and Doug hired me to do this one. This is what it looks like afterwards. Turned out beautiful. All we did is clean up the brick and put that sign. Here's before the demo. Is after the demo. We just cleaned the brick wall, sealed the floor. Um, Kind of a challenging building. There's only windows on the front and a small one in the back. So getting light throughout the building was a challenge. And then another, I love glass. I love making them as big as we can. Okay, so then a few years back, I actually had the opportunity with Volchek Gardens to design and build the Railside Plaza expansion. Um, you know what? That's a great question. I've done a lot for GI, thank you. How would other communities entice developers to do some of the same projects? Enticing big developers, all you do is throw money at them. What can you do to market or provide incentives? I think you guys, Sked, is doing really well at this. Like what you guys did in Wood River, keep that stuff up. But the biggest thing, and I'm going to try to not be all jaded and let my jaded part show and shine through, but I make no promises. You have to support the small guy. There's people like me, like I'm not even gonna touch on it except this little statement. I have a subdivision that I wanted to do, and I was going to do different types of housing, smaller housing. I was going to make it so people could buy a brand new condo, row housing. And when small developers don't get support, when the big guys get picked over them, and I understand why the big guys get picked. They're sexy, they got the bankroll to do it, that's that's great. But if you keep losing the small guys because you keep coddling the big guys, you're going to lose the small guys, and that's just as simple as it is. So just support to the best of your ability. You can support the small guy just like Sierra, just like Helium. I took a risk on her, so the cities can do the same thing. Somebody has to take the risk. And no, they're not all going to work out. There's ways to mitigate the risk, but that's how you support them. And maybe we can go into that more at the end here. But so this is where the plaza expansion, like I said, we designed and built it. This is what it looks like from overhead today. There's a stage. This is actually one of my favorite pictures. Well, too soon. This is what it looks like from the ground with nobody using it. These are shipping container bathrooms. I built them out of shipping containers, and they ended up working pretty slick. This is what it looks like at night. We have the color changing festoons. Oh my gosh, they make such a huge difference, those festoons. This is my favorite one. Look at that. And this was donated, half of this money for this $650,000 plaza expansion was donated by Amir Equipment Finance. So when there's companies like that willing to put that type of money out, that's huge. That's everything. And then the city of Grand Island and a few other of their partners. I think it was the Grow Grand Island gave a bunch of money. But look at that. Look at all those people hanging out downtown, supporting somebody practicing their craft, just being around like-minded people, shopping at the places. Just the synergy of it is just amazing. Um, I've got 3 or 4 projects left. I think I'll be all right. So this is what I'm calling the silo building. I never did any research, and I don't know if the homeowner did or not, but Silo Skate Shop is right here, another entrepreneur and the coffee shop. So before I got them a facade grant, a small one. So they got a facade grant and they got tax increment financing on this because the life safety fund had ran out. They needed the life safety. This one was a tight project. But it ended up just looking beautiful. These are the original wood floors. And then they went really different with the doors. You'll see some here in a minute. So this is the middle one, so it's a little funky, and they put this whitewash on it. It's different. We left the rafters exposed because the insulation was on top. We get, hey Susan, nice to see you. We get a lot of them from Wayfair, to be honest, and they're very cost effective. Sometimes you have to send them back when they don't look like what you thought they would. But like these doors, they're just um, these are actually solid core. He should have got hollow core, but they're just flat slabs. And then I had my carpenters put this trim on here because if you went to order this door, um, they're like $800 doors, but we ended up just paying nowhere near that. And then he ordered these doors on Wayfair too. And then it just turned out so beautiful. Um, and then I didn't do a whole lot. I was the general on this one, but I didn't design or do anything on this one. But I want to put it in here to show you guys, you folks, that what you can do with these basements. So these are the original stairs that we actually dug up, and they basically meet code. They met code enough to use them. And he put a bar down there. So this is in the Hetty building. And then I did some offices on the second floor of the Yancey for Pat O'Neill and the Weinrichs. Again, those exposed pan joists, the exposed columns. We just embraced the sewer pipes and painted them. This is fun. He's noticed this glass. I'm pointing out all the things. This glass is that little knee wall's that tall. This knee wall's this tall. This knee wall's this tall. This is the glass out of the Grand Island Mall, like out of the Buckle and American Eagle. Um, so we reused all that. This is $40,000 worth of glass that we were able to use. So we got creative. And then we kind of surface mounted all the conduit and just kind of embraced the look. Um, just painted brick again, exposed fire lines. I had to help them design it because I wanted it to be tucked up in a way. If you let the subs drive where stuff goes, they're going to make it easy on them. And that's where somebody like me comes in and babysits them because they would have put it all at this height and that would have looked like garbage. So you got to babysit them. This is my last one on the presentation. So this is where the Wayne State College kids, their senior year, they can do their senior year as an internship. We got our first round of students and they're in here. So there's 3 students in these apartments. I did these for Jim Perney and they turned out really sharp as well. The bathroom was kind of fun. I hid behind the thing. I was able to take the picture of mirrors without taking a picture of myself. Sorry. Just kind of funny. And then, yeah, this is the last one. So, I am definitely going to be sticking around for questions, but for those of you that only carved out an hour, um, you've got 2 minutes left to ask me a question. I love answering them as you can see, but um, I please stick around. We can go back through any of these pictures. I can talk about any of it. I got a whole nother hour if you guys want. So that's my presentation, Lori.
Well, thank you, Amos. I don't know, did you address Christina's question about the biggest local or state policy that you wanted to change?
Um, the codes can be one of the things that keeps raising the price of all of this is regulations. And that's a really broad word, but like an example is the elevator codes. Those are so stringent and so monopolized. The monopolies are one thing that really get me. And then like the electric code, my gosh, breakers you used to be able to put a simple breaker in, but now you have to put these GFCI breakers on everything, including the range, and it's just the overreach of some of the regulation. So that's where like the National Association of Home Builders comes in. I know like one thing they uh, advocated for was making it optional to do mandatory fire sprinklers in new construction. It has its place, but there's also places where it's the lobbies and the industries. When the people writing the code are the people manufacturing the devices, that doesn't really work out for the general public. Oh, we're protecting them, right? But anyway, that's my
Yeah.
soapbox. I love what the state is doing with the it's called Bill GI here in Grand Island, but the state housing funds, I know that's all in the chopping block every year, but that is extremely helpful. I really, really like um, when people use it as a revolving loan. Do you know, money's expensive right now, 7.5%, 8%. It makes these projects not work. But when you can do it at a really lower rate, there's a lot of these projects that'll work. So it's regulations, it's more on the code stuff. Building officials, if they're willing to think a little bit outside the box, they can't break the rules, and I'm never asking them to break the rules, but they can interpret it just like that unfinished attic space. It was
Mhm.
unfinished attic space and it worked. So if the local building officials, you know what, if you're having trouble in your town, have them call up Chad Nabity. He's he wouldn't he he wouldn't be mad that I said that. He's been very, very open-minded. And Ed Klimick, he's very realistic. Again, they can't break the rules and they won't. But like the city of Grand Island, um, in my other one of my other hats, we had minimum lot sizes. So the minimum lot size was 50 feet wide and 3,000 square feet. I went and approached them. I'm like, hey, can we make the minimum lot size like 49 square feet and 4,000? And on our Habitat subdivision, when I was still with them, we went from like these are arbitrary numbers because it's been so long. We basically we were able to get like five more lots, and they went from $32,000 a lot down to like 26. And so changes like that just help do things. And that's where you ask them, hey, can I do this? Can I build a smaller lot? No, you can't. Okay, can we change city code to make it so we can? Oh, yeah, we could do that. Boom, done. So if there's barriers standing in people's way, ask if he can change it. That's yeah,
Okay.
that's one of the big things that I've done. I've changed city
Sure.
code probably like almost a dozen times.
Okay.
The
Well,
rules are
and I,
there. They don't have to
yeah.
stay there.
I don't know if I made you aware, but Chad was our presenter last month, and he was very complimentary and indicated that you keep him on his toes in a good way because you think outside the box is the example of the unfinished attic space, or making lot sizes a little bit smaller so you can get more housing units, but it's still a very nice lot for those who are building on it. So Paula asked what you use to seal your concrete floors, or do you acid wash?
Um, no, we clean it with I wish I could tell you. If you
Yeah.
email me, yeah, if you email me, I can find what we use. We've tried
Okay.
everything. What we found, it stinks and it will literally blow your building up if you get a spark. But it is an industrial sealer. Email me and I can get it for you. But
Okay.
we put it in at the chocolate bar and it has just stood the abuse. When you put it in a restaurant and it survives like 15 years later, you know it's a good product. But yeah, email me and I'll tell you.
Okay. Good. So, what do any of you want to know from Amos? What might be an aha for you, or something you're going to implement or take back home with you today at the conclusion of the webinar?
Oh, Alyssa, you know the answer to that. I worked with Alyssa at Habitat after Dana left.
Okay.
What advice would a nonprofit do to recruit more developers and builders to help build affordable housing? It was so tough. I donated somewhere between 10 and 15,000 hours to Habitat because I loved their vision. I loved the amount of hours that people had to put in, 500 hours of sweat equity. They had to show a need. They had um, to have the ability to repay it. They took homeowner classes. That's why I personally, as a builder, donated so much of my life force and my time to it because I help, the organization helped people move forward and make a better life for themselves and therefore society. So that's what intrigued me about it. So a lot of builders will donate, and so like we did the Blitz build. I think I did 6 of them. That's where we built a house in 4.5 days. That's fun, by the way. That's no small feat. But a lot of those subcontractors would donate because they believed in the organization as well. So getting people that care about the cause is probably the best way to do it because it's not about money. A nonprofit can't pay what the private sector can to do some of this. So getting people to fall in love with your organization, um, that's easier said than done.
Definitely. So, yeah, Scotty's got a question there about your intern housing.
Yeah, and that's Jim Perney that got that contract. I just built in and did the interior design. Um, it's a program with Wayne State. I think Grand Island was the third city to do it. I don't know a lot of details, but there's an RFP that goes out that developers can reply to. I know that's how Jim did it. So he just it was through our local EDC, Mary Burley over there, kind of brought it to Jim's attention, and when he was able to apply to be one of the developers, and he got picked. It was competitive, and he did get picked. But um, yeah, either email Mary Burley. She has some details at the Grand Island Area Economic Development Corporation, or the Wayne State folks. I'm not terribly sure, but it's backed by the state, has some money in it too, I believe, and then Wayne State's throwing in some, but they basically guarantee and pay part of the rent for the students.
Okay, good. What other questions are coming to mind?
I want to emphasize something that Amos talked about. You got to take a risk on the newbies. It's in our rural workforce, it'd be easy for me to just keep going out to those that I know they have a system, they can get it done, and they turn them out over and over and over and over. But that means of our 13 counties, we're helping one or two or three. And I have Leanne and I have poured so much into a new developer, but I think it's going to pay off for decades to come. And look at what that's done. Somebody took a risk on Amos, and look what's happened in Grand Island. And how many of you aren't saying, dang, how do I get him to my town? Or how do I clone him? And we're gonna take a risk on some people, and it's not gonna turn out. But every time a door slams, a window opens, right? And it'll bring somebody else to say, hey, I saw what you did. Will you help me? And they might turn out to be incredible. So I think that's huge, Amos. Thank you for bringing that to light.
Yeah, and since you gave me the soapbox back, one of the things that I had suggested to use with some funds at some point from somebody was to do a builder like to foster a builder. I'm 43, like I said, I'm one of the youngest builders. There has been very few builders coming up. If you keep not replacing the old timers, who are you going to have left? You're not literally not going to have anybody. And so like foster, like if Angel, I brag about him all the time. He's like a mini me. Um, uh, he's the next generation of builder. But he wants to build a spec home. If a 27-year-old goes to a bank and is like, "Hey, I want to build a spec home. We have this housing crisis, right? We need housing, especially workforce housing. Like to stay a word away from the word affordable. We need workforce housing." Well, he wants to build it. We need it. No bank is going to loan him the money. So how about we find a way to loan him the money, but also protect your money just like a bank would. You can't just throw money at somebody. Make them show you a pro forma. Make them show you a money in, money out. This is how much I'm going to spend, and have a group of people on a board that vets it. Like he's literally puts the HVAC is going to cost this much, this is going to cost this much. You hand it to the group. They see how much he's going to make, how much stuff is going to cost, and they vet it, and boom, loan him the money at 1% interest, 0% interest. Because I don't know if you know, at when you borrow money at 8%, you do a spec home and it sits for a year and a half. Didn't even talk about my subdivision. That is a really difficult thing for a startup. So support them that way. Like there's ways to do this. Just think outside the box and take a risk. But anyway.
Yeah. Couple added comments in the chat box. Denise followed up on the Wayne State program, so take note of that information for those of you who are looking at that. And then Paula also added, sometimes you just don't know what you're getting into at first, but if you don't know you're not supposed to be able to do something, you might be able to pull it off. So, and I think that's probably the attitude that you started with, Amos. You just didn't know that you couldn't do some of this stuff.
Yeah, I was just I don't I don't like to use the word arrogant, but I was just arrogant enough to, when you're a young 20 something, the world is, you can conquer the world, and uh they need reined in. But yeah, you don't you're too ignorant to know um the hurdles that you're going to run into. I am a major advocate of failure. I fail every day, and it just builds character, and it helps you learn. Like I said in the beginning with my crass statement, I apologize if people don't like cursing, but it brings a point home. You screw stuff up, and you learn, and you don't know what you don't know, and then you learn it and you find out, and in the process you hopefully get something built and make a difference. I mean, you can look at it, just drive through downtown Grand Island.
Yeah, it's incredible. And thanks for the footprint or thumbprint. I'm not sure which is appropriate that you've left on, your mark in the downtown of Grand Island. So,
Yeah.
last call for questions for Amos.
And feel free to call me or text me. Don't go to my website. It's terrible. You can tell I'm good at a few things, and I'm really bad at other things, like putting together PowerPoint presentations and keeping a website up. I don't have social media. I don't have anything. The links are broken on the website, so just call me, email me, or text me if you
Okay,
need something.
wonderful. Yes, and did I hear somebody start to say something?
Yeah, I have a parting comment and question. I know a few of you on the call today went to the Governor's Summit, and one of the six region One Nebraska projects going on is like basically child care coaches. So when Amos is talking about mentoring future builders, I feel like the model where there's some sort of a program where they would maybe shadow or work with someone like Amos, who's entrepreneurial thinking, has experience with failures, working through code, and at the end of the program they're given some sort of a stipend. Maybe it's 5,000 to buy tools or a truck or a trailer or something like that. Like the I don't know if you guys, I'll let you guys elaborate on, explain, like Sharon or others who Dina Beck has her child care coaching. Is anybody on the call familiar, could elaborate that more? I thought something, a model like that just for the trades or something like that would be really, really interesting here for our communities to build a workforce of other builders in the towns in the area.
Yeah, that's a great thought, Sean. So basically, for those of you not familiar, the Central Region, as part of six regions, one Nebraska, the Central Community College region has a child care champion program looking to come alongside and have mentors in place to work with individuals who want to start an in-home 1 or an in-home 2 childcare, and the mentors work alongside them, help them navigate all of the regulations and requirements to be a licensed in-home childcare provider. It would also work with centers, but primarily the focus is in-home. And then upon completion and the licensing being completed and they open their doors, they do receive a stipend. And so to date, I believe 8 childcares have been opened in the Central Community College region of Nebraska with the goal of having at least 30. But I know we also have close to 40 who are still in the application process. So yeah, that definitely is a possibility, Sean. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah,
So
and you saying that, I don't know much about the program that you're talking about, but it struck a thought with me. When the Grand Island Public Schools had their pathways, and I thought I actually was one of the normies that went with them to Nashville when they were looking at doing that, and there's a lot good that could come from that. But one of the things that stuck with me was there was a kid that volunteered at Habitat one day, and I'm like, "Hey, what's your story?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to senior high. I'm going to go to CCC." I'm like, "Oh, are you in the pathway?" And he's like, "No, I didn't get it. I got my like third choice." And he was in something like completely way away from carpentry. So the one kid that needed to be in carpentry didn't go into carpentry. And I don't say that to complain or to belittle anything, but you find when you find that young person who is passionate, look past their flaws and foster them any way you can. There's fewer and fewer young kids, young people that actually care. And when you find one, do everything you can to encourage them instead of twisting them and saying, no, you can't do that. Oh, no, encourage them, because if you don't, the pool of passionate people who actually care and are skilled, it's getting smaller. And then those people, those kids also, where are they going to want to live? Are they going to want to come to your town where they just get beat down all the time? And just no, do everything you can to find those gems and keep them. Like it's different than it used to be. There's so many contractors and tradesmen. They're like, oh, you should show up to work 20 minutes early and not be on your phone. And like, okay, I get it. Like that's all good, but the world's different now. You have to foster the ones that you can. Just do what you can to encourage them. Otherwise, you're going to lose them, and then you will have nothing.
well, thank you, Amos.
Yep.
As we conclude today, just a reminder that today's webinar will be uploaded to our website, HomeNE.us, in the next few days. And next month's webinar, we will be featuring David Branch. He is the executive director of Cumming County Economic Development Corporation. So he gave me a little bit of a tease the other day about what he might be speaking about. So maybe rehabilitation may be part of his presentation. We'll see. So, but once again, thank you, Amos. Great to have you, and come back anytime.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.